to, because there's only one reason that an application developer would ask you to turn these things off, especially when they're offering a Ring Zero product, and that's potentially um, to be able to gain nefarious access to your device. With that being said, the only thing I do have to do, and this goes for pretty much most everything, is that these applications are generally not signed. They're not digitally signed by the manufacturer. And that's to provide them with some anonymity. It's also because Microsoft would never issue a digital signature for these executables that are going to run. So, with that being said, that's what trips off a lot of Windows false positives. And that's what trips off a lot of Windows antivirus things coming up and saying, oh my gosh, this is a threat. We don't know what this is. That's because it simply isn't signed by the manufacturer. It's normal for this process. So we have to understand and accept that there is a process that these developers go through. And some of the warnings that you will see are not necessarily bad warnings, they're expected. So down here under virus and threat protection, what I've done is I've left all of it on real time, cloud delivered, sample submission, tamper, everything's on with one exception. I've created an exclusion folder. This folder here is identical to the folder that I have on my primary volume. You can see right there, build. Inside this build folder, I've got all kinds of products and software and things that I use that I know are not signed by the developer, and I just want to be able to run them without constantly getting warnings. And this is how you do it. You just mark something in the exclude folder. Now, in order to download these tools, there are tools that sometimes will not even download without you excluding certain things out of your system. And I'll make a different video on that because it's very tricky. And I want to make sure I don't get you guys all confused with what we're doing here. This is not exactly the easiest video to make because it does require a lot of technical explanation as to what's happening. And I want to make sure that I cover those parts and not get sidetracked or digress too much. So the build folder we have is excluded, and inside this wrong build folder, and inside this we have downloaded both Golden Gun, which is a zip file, and we have also downloaded Golden Key. Now you know I made a video about unlocking everything. That's what this is for. What we're focusing on today is Golden Gun right here. This is the executable of the zip file. When we extract it, we get two files in our folder. We get the cleaner and the Golden Gun cheating tools. Golden Key comes from a different purchase. It is not included in the standard purchase. I would refer you back to Golden Gun's website for additional purchase details, as I do know that products and packages do change every so often. Um, in order for the cleaner to run effectively, it's important for us to keep it in the build folder because it's an unsigned executable. So we're going to tuck that away. We're going to tuck that away. I'm going to go ahead and close up the Golden Gun website. I'm going to encourage all of you to do a lot of reading into what a Ring Zero device is and how dangerous it can be. All right, so make sure you get yourself up. Wikipedia is a good site for that. For those who are not in the IT business, listen, if you have somebody in your family or friend group that is in the IT business and you tell them, hey, I'm cheating on this video game and I got this spoofer and it was developed by a couple of guys in Russia and it runs in Ring Zero, the first thing they're going to do is slap you across the face. Don't you dare run that. um, not really. Make sure that, look, if you have someone in your friends or family circle that understands IT at this level, like I do, run this past them. Just don't take my word for it. Go out and seek your own information. Understand what this is at a very intimate level. Consult friends and family that might be in the business about what Ring Zero is and what it does, and tell them what kind of tools you're using. And you're going to find a fairly good amount of resistance. There's no IT person worth their weight in salt that would run a Ring Zero tool from a foreign nation provided by, adversaries of of America. This is just something that we just generally don't do. Usually, a career-changing decision. All right, enough of that. Get that out of the way. Golden Gun doesn't require you to do any of that stuff. So now, on this device, we've been playing with our Golden Key unlocked guy character in the game for about a week. I'm up to level 54, never been banned. If I was, however, hypothetically, hardware ID banned and whatever, all I have to do is clean the system, restart the system, and I'm done and ready to go. Let's walk you through how to do that. First thing I'm going to do is run the cleaner as administrator because I do need it to run with my level of privileges. We're going to make this quite big because it does get a little bit long in the teeth. So I'm then going to open up my license file off screen and grab my license. It's the same license that's used for the cheats. Now, the folks over at Golden Gun have been alerted to the fact um, that I'm using these licenses in the presentation of these videos. So although I do obfuscate and kind of blur out the license that you're about to see, there's always the chance that I might miss something. So I've let them know that these are the two licenses that I'm using to do the presentations and the review kindly. So if anybody else tries to use those licenses, please stop that activity, and they've accepted that. All right, so there's our license. We're going to go ahead and validate that key, and you can see that the instructions are very simple. This is really easy to do. Um, you need to understand that Activision has traced a couple of things about you. They've grabbed a couple of serial numbers off your motherboard. They've grabbed your MAC address. They've grabbed your disk serial number to where the game is installed. They have grabbed your Windows user ID and security ID, otherwise known as a SID. Every object in your computer has a special number that's assigned to it. It's called a SID. Uh, that's called security ID. Those numbers never change, no matter how many times you might rename a file or rename a user. Those numbers never change. So it's and they're so long. They're like 64 something characters long. So they're always unique. There's never two in the world that are the same. So it's a good thing that it's good from Activision's perspective because they've gathered a lot of information about your device and how you're using it to be able to say, okay, we can create a profile for this user, and then if we see the activity we don't like hacking, then we can go ahead and ban this profile this user. So it's important to understand how to change those values so that you can get through that. The first thing is if you're a complete novice and you've never done anything like this before, simply coming in and running each of these manually, running number one, number two, number three in that order, that'll provide you with some feedback and you'll see some data on screen that will show you what the things that it's changing. If you do this repeatedly like I do, where you have to do it all the time, almost every other month, right, to get my machine out of a hardware ID ban, then I just come in, I hit zero, and it runs through everything. It reboots my machine, comes back, and it's clean done, and I'm right back into the game with a fresh account. That being said, if your account, there's a couple of different types of bans. There's account-based bans, and then there's hardware bans. On the account ban side, you get a shadow ban or a perma ban. The shadow ban can be recoverable after 14 days if Activision doesn't have a chance to review your footage. Because there's 100 million players worldwide and everyone is reporting everyone, there's a good possibility that if you got a soft ban, if you're showing 350 millisecond pings, if you have a shadow ban, then you can generally just park that account for a couple of weeks and come back and check it later. The odds are it'll be released back to you. Activision hardly ever gets a chance to review a lot of footage, so there's only a handful of people at Activision that do the manual reviews, and permanently banning an account requires a manual review to take place. So odds are they've got 50,000 or 100,000 reports today. There's 5 people doing this or 10, um, and they just never get through that pile of shit, right? So um, they're never going to get to it in months. So, nevertheless, 2 weeks. And their internal policy is that, look, if we can't get to it in 2 weeks, that's our bad. Let you have your account back. If you're a repeat offender like I am, you will eventually get a perma ban. Permanent bans are easy to detect because when you log into BattleNet on your desktop, it'll say in the lower left hand corner, this account is permanently banned. You can't even click on the play button, so it's toast. You got to make a new account. Um, if you are hardware ID banned, how do we detect and understand whether you're hardware ID banned? That is usually easy to detect when you create a new account. If you're instantly banned after creating a brand new fresh account, Or if you create a new account and you get that first game in and then try to get into game two and you're shadow banned out to 350, that usually means that your hardware is suspect. So now we have to run this cleaner. And in order to run that cleaner, it means we need to do all these functions. And there's 6 steps. Again, if you press 0, it runs through them all automated. It's completely automated, hands-free. If you have to run them one by one, which is exactly what we're going to do here, then you get to see kind of what happens. All right, let's start with cleaning the trace files and registry. To do so, it's going to prompt me to see if and where if and where I've got Call of Duty Modern Warfare installed. So you got to read the text up here. It's often located in x86, Call of Duty Modern Warfare. So it needs to know where the software is. So I'm going to show it. All right, that's it. Just select that folder at the root and click OK. You'll notice it pops up a second window asking me for the location of Black Ops Cold War. I don't have Black Ops Cold War installed, so I can hit cancel. Once I hit cancel, this left side is going to begin to run through the cleaning process for all the trace files and registry settings. Now you'll notice, let's take a look at kind of what it did here. Let's get up to the top. Okay. So you'll notice that it's deleting certain folders and files to make sure that all of the traces are complete, right? Successfully cleaned Call of Duty trace files, and now going into the registry here and deleting all these items out of the registry, including things like the BattleNet folder, the encryption key, identity, all that stuff's getting cleaned out. That's step one of the process, and it shows you that it was deleted, and then finishes up with a message telling you it was successful. All right, so now we're going to change our hardware ID. And in order to change the hardware ID, we need access to serial numbers that are embedded into the motherboard, and that can be tricky. Most motherboards today, I think 80 or 90% of the market uses BIOS by a company called American Megatrends. And you may remember that because when you turn on your machine, it says in the upper left-hand corner with a little logo, American Megatrends, and runs through all of the startup routines. Furthermore, if you actually hit delete F1 or whatever your special key is, if you go into your BIOS and you look at the manufacturer at the bottom of the screen, generally says American Megatrends. Now, this will not be the case if you are running something that is based on Dell. So if you're running a Dell Powerhouse workstation, or if you're running something like an Alienware, those are using proprietary BIOS that's built by Dell, so that won't work on those devices. Unfortunately, it also won't work on anything that's IBM based, or HP based. So if you've got an HP, an IBM, or a Dell, then you're kind of out of luck. You'll need to do other things, most likely get a new motherboard. If you are using a standard gaming PC like I am with an Asus motherboard that has American Megatrends, which all of them do, then you're going to be okay here. So, American Megatrends has a list of tools and utilities where you can view and edit your BIOS directly. And take a look at this screenshot here. This is going to look very familiar in just a minute when we start running the tools. Um, I have in my possession this year, the desktop management interface for the BIOS, for the system BIOS. So I'm going to put that away for a second and get that out of the way. I'm going to bring this over because I want to go back into my build folder. I want to go to my spoofing tools, to my AMI American Megatrends Incorporated BIOS tools, right? There's all the documentation and stuff on what does what. And I'm going to go in here to the BIOS modifier. You can see the ADMI Win64. That's actually the executable that's going to be called when we run this next step. But before we do that, I want to make sure that I run this edit tool. You'll notice, again, American Megatrends. This is accessing now the motherboard BIOS directly. Whoa, stop right there for a minute. So I'm stopping the video here for a second because one thing that I didn't neglect to cover in this video, in this part of the video, if you're using this tool and you've opened up your BIOS, make sure that the first time you do this, the very first time, that you go up to where it says File and Save All. And when it prompts you to give a file name and a location, make sure that you have successfully exported or saved all. of your existing configuration out to a drive somewhere. This is the only way that you'll be able to keep your existing serial numbers if you ever want to put them back. Do it now. All right, back to the video. So I can see BIOS information, system information, baseboard module, class and chassis and enclosure, processor details, all of it. I can edit these properties by hand. So if I double click on anything in green, it brings up a message, just like editing an old fashioned registry was back in the 90s or even the 80s. And I got to understand this string. So characters, it's alphanumeric, upper and lower, and I got to count the number of characters. And I could actually change this by hand. I mean, I could just erase what's here and put whatever I want in. But before I do that, it's important to understand the length and style of the characters. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 characters, right? So this is a 16 character serial number string, and I can replace it with anything that's alphanumeric. The same thing goes for the UUID, and you'll notice on most gaming motherboards, auto-generating a UUID is simple. You don't have to even type it. You just click the button and it's over. Going to baseboard, it's easy to change the serial number of my baseboard. Notice it's all numeric, right? And we would just count the number of strings and replace it with something else. And the system enclosure or chassis. Notice this one's alphanumeric, and of course it has a specific length. Now we're going to tuck this away, and we're going to go ahead and select number 2, and we're going to watch what happens. So there we go. So you can see it's running the AMI DEWIN 64. So it's the AMI DE Win 64 utility and changing all of my serial numbers. And it does it very quickly. Special point of note, this H at the end is normal and the H is added automatically. So if you are looking at these, the H will always be there, even though the digits will change. So you'll notice here is the system UUID that's current, and here's the system UUID after it's been changed. Notice system changed UUID to auto and went ahead and changed the last, or changed all of it, but you can verify quickly by just looking at the last couple of digits. You'll notice that the same thing happens with the baseboard serial number to a random string, and that the system serial number has also been randomized. That's it. It's done, right? Chassis serial number, there we go, all finished. So that was easy, right? They didn't have to do it all by hand. They just push a button. Changing the MAC address is also quite easy. Now let's go into the control panel and take a look. A lot of guys will tell you, turn off any unnecessary or unused network adapters. I don't. I just go into the network sharing control center, change adapter settings in the upper left. You can see I've got a lot of different network connections. All of them are unplugged, but they're here, right? So they're all enabled. Um, my Bluetooth connection, 2 Ethernet ports, my NordVPN for work, my VirtualBox for Oracle VirtualBox for work, also 2 Wi-Fi connections, and I've got a Wi-Fi connection here that comes from an Intel Wi-Fi 6, and another one here that comes from my Netgear A7000. Very simple, right? All right, so tucking that away, so we're going to go ahead and change the MAC addresses. A MAC address is a physical ID or a physical number that is presented to the network in order to physically identify who you are. Again, the names of things can change, but the numbers underneath those names always remain the same until you do something like this. And we're going to do number 3, and we're going to change all of our MAC addresses. And there we go, all done. So the old Mac and the new Mac, and the old Mac and the new Mac, right? All nice and easy to understand and read. Here's what the old Mac was, C344, and here's the new Mac, DE6C. Plain and simple, nice and easy to do. So far what we've done is we've cleaned the trace files law and all kinds of logs and registry stuff. We've changed up the hardware ID. We've just changed our MAC addresses, and in the final 2 steps, we're going to change the disk ID serial numbers, and then create a new Windows user account. So now we're going to go ahead and change our disk serial numbers. We're going to go ahead and let's actually open up a command window. All right, so if I bring this down here, I know this is a big one. It's bigger. Um, if I simply use the volume command, like I typed right here, volume, just vol, I can see that my primary C drive, and I can see my serial number of the C drive right there, CC2F, right? And if I went over to my D drive and did the same thing, I would see the volume for archive storage is D. I would see that serial number over here. Okay, we're going to leave that up for a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and use option number 4, and I'm going to change my serial IDs. There we go, all done. So the serial IDs that I have now are different than the ones I had before. Okay, so you can see the volume ID of the C drive is changed to this here. You can see that that is not the same as this. And you can see that the D drive has been changed to this one. And you can see that it's not the same as this one. So they're changed. So effectively, I've done everything except one more thing. Creating a new user or Windows account. Okay. Typically, this is something that I do by hand. Um, you're free to do it by hand if you have Windows 10 Pro. You can do it very easily. Just simply go down here, right click on your start button, go into computer management, and once that loads up, you just simply go to local users and groups, go into users, and you can change whatever you want. You can add a new user here, give it a name. If I can type, give it a name, be done with it. You'll notice that I created this one called the Warzone Hacker. It's important for you to make sure that your account that you've created is part of the administrators group. Okay, that's important for you guys to know. It has to be part of the administrators group in order to run certain things. As an alternative to doing it by hand, you can always do it just by hitting 5 and letting the tool create that account for you. Let's do one of those. All right, so it created a new user called this, and it gave it a password of password. It added the new user this to the administrators group. All done, right? So when you reboot your computer and the login window appears, you're going to see a new account down in the lower left-hand side of the system, and that new account is going to be the one that you're going to want to log into. Some of these settings, particularly the hardware, the disk drive serial numbers, that doesn't take effect until you've restarted your machine. So with that being said, I am actually going to do precisely that. I'm going to restart my machine, and then I'm going to come back, and we're going to go ahead and continue by logging in and playing a game. So I will be back right after a restart. All right, everybody, welcome back. So we've just rebooted. We just came back after a restart. For those of you following closely, I record the whole screen for a reason. You can see it's been a minute since the time has changed. So now what are we going to do here? So I've logged in back to my Warzone hacker account. I did not log into that new user, and for a good reason, because I don't want to have to set all this recording software back up. So I'm just kind of logged right back into the account that I know is already good and working. All right, next item of business, we're going to go ahead and launch Call of Duty. Notice I'm not loading any cheats yet, okay? I'm going to go ahead and launch Call of Duty, and you're going to follow along as it does a couple of updates to replace files and folders and data that was previously deleted. I am going to open my build folder, however, because I do need some account credentials once we get that far. So let me just kind of get that open. Okay. So, do you want to launch Battle.net? No, we don't want to launch it when the PC restarts. We want to be able to, in the future, load our hacks first. So it's going to go ahead. This doesn't take long. So it's going to go ahead and just kind of update all of the Battle.net, stuff. So really recommend you guys take a look at that Ring Zero stuff. You don't need it as often as everybody makes you think you do. Cleaning the system is a lot more efficient and provides a permanent level of safety for you that you are in complete control of. You get to choose when it runs, you get to choose what gets changed, and you are in complete control of what's happening with your system. Recommended over and above any of these automatic spoofers. So, all right, BattleNet's been kind of updated. We're just going to throw this over to the other screen, and we need some account details in order to get logged in. Make sure that you have kept your account details in a text file or in a spreadsheet like mine is, so that because when you do clean, it does sort of wipe out the username field. So this should all start to look very familiar. It's kind of like we've just reinstalled Warzone, right? Like we have a brand new account, and that's because the system thinks we do, and that's great. It's exactly what we want. Make sure to always check your region, okay? And Call of Duty needs to do an update before it'll let me in, so we're going to do one of those. This will take only a second. It's done. All right, so now that's all finished. Everything is updated. We are all good in the hood. So we are going to exit out. We're going to exit the application all the way out. We're going to head and open up our build folder. And now we're going to get in here and run these cheats. So back to build, golden gun here. And we are going to run as administrator. Move this off screen. I'm going to grab my license and I'm going to paste it in here. Okie doke. Let's get that loaded. Oh, there we go. It's loaded successfully. And it will automatically close itself down in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And that'll get rid of that. Next order of business, we're going to jump into our Call of Poopy Modern Poop Fair. All right, let's get logged in. All right, that looks great. Everything looks good. Check our region, and let's hit play. Now, again, just as another reminder, all of these videos that we make are as uncut as possible. I do fast forward through some parts, but I'm certainly not going to start chopping out big swings in the uh, in the videos. I'd like you to make sure that you can get a full feel for what it's like without feeling like we've had some smoke and mirrors at play. So, gonna let everything load up naturally. Gonna let the cheats load in. As soon as the shaders are done, the cheats should show up. You'll notice the character that I'm using currently. It's like a level 500 skin I've got on this guy. By the way, love the new interface. As a side note, the new interface is very nice. And it looks as if the developers have taken some of the comments and feedback. They've included these little question marks next to most of the items, so that it sort of explains to you what each of these things do. And I think that's fantastic. Um, Super cool for them to do that. The new interface is really sharp, very slick, very slick. All right, now I'm playing with this character here, which has most of the weapons and things unlocked. I've got a couple of different loadouts. I've got an F1 key to turn everything off, a F2 key for casual gameplay. We'll go ahead and load that and show you what that means. That means that my smoothing is at 5 and my acceleration is at 89 and so forth and so on. So just adjusting some of my settings. So, and then I've got, of course, my rage settings. I do like how it says rage has joined the game. That's awesome. So I've got my rage settings, and that, of course, is a 0-100. So I can toggle between, the F2 and the F3, basically like this. And you guys can see over here where it shows casual and rage, you know, casual and rage. I am actually doing this with the benefit of a foot pedal. I have a triple foot pedal underneath the desk, so if I turn on my camera and point my camera straight down at my controller, I don't have to use um, you know, an extra button on my controller. If I wanted to be a super cool streamer, I would just be able to like, oh, look, I could show you my controller and my keyboard, and I'm not hacking, I promise. Yep, I could do that because you can't see under the desk. And I've just got a couple of USB-based foot pedals under here for 30 bucks. You know, it's the best thing ever. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into a game. We have our rage settings loaded. That's totally fine. Let's make sure that our audio, in-game audio, is off. Let's turn this off, and then we'll jump into a trios. Notice the 29 millisecond ping, right? When you're under 35-ish, you know, under 40-ish, at the first ping like this, it's a 99% chance you're fine. You can keep on going. And because it's the middle of the day here in Chicago, there probably isn't going to be a huge population of players, but there might be a few. Most kids are on spring break or summer break, and most every other adult is at work. So, including me, I'm working. I'm supposed to be working. So give this a minute, and we'll get ourselves up into a match. There we go. We're in a game. How about that? No spoofer, just the cleaner, right? Just run in the cleaner. Jump right into a game. Now, this particular character has been my character of choice now for the last couple of 3 weeks. Maybe 2 weeks, level 53.
Get yourself the proper warm-up. We'll be deployed.
There we go. Cheats are working. How about that? It's pretty easy. Straightforward stuff. We're going to put this back to Phil so we can get into a match a little faster, and we're going to go ahead and game number 2. Let's jump into a duos. Look at that 29 millisecond ping. Now, I just want to make myself really clear. If there's anybody in the nation, maybe even in the world, that has been banned repetitively over and over again, I think at this stage of the game now that we're in June, end of June, I think I've burnt through 100 and something accounts. I have been hardware banned, I can't tell you, 8, 10 times. Just run the cleaner. You're fine. If anybody knows how to get out of being banned, it's me. So let's jump into a quick duos. Can't wait for this ground fall to drop. 45 minutes. Woo! It's gonna drop at noon today. It's gonna be glorious. I'm gonna be there. Yep. Looks like we're dropping into a game.
Get yourself the proper warm-up. We'll be deploying soon.
And we have a partner. And we have our
Enemy dropping into the
our little cheaty cheats. So that's it for this video, guys. Listen, if you like what we're doing with the channel, if you guys appreciate the video and the hard work that goes into them, we love you for it. Give us some love back by giving us a like and making sure that you guys comment in the section down below. We enjoy the comments. We are extraordinarily responsive to comments. I'm going to go ahead and play with this kid for a little bit. And sounds like we're going to stadium, so I'll see you guys in the next video. Gotta get busy. Gotta play. See you guys later.